How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com. Of course, your favorite co-host over at the Locked On Colts podcast. We are back with yet another Film Room Friday, diving into the play of right guard Matt Goncalves and how he performed against the Atlanta Falcons. You know, obviously this was not the perfect week for the Colts offensive line. 7 sacks allowed, a couple QB hits, a couple fumbles in the backfield as well. But overall, I thought Goncalves and the interior offensive line played exceptionally well. And as a result, I don't really have too many negative plays here from Goncalves. I promise you guys I'm not cherry picking. Like, we can go through every snap if you want on a future video, but I really don't have too many negative plays. I thought Goncalves played exceptionally well, and the Colts were able to still put up 31 points in what was a pretty tough game for them. So we're going to dive into the clips here, talk about mostly positive day from Goncalves and a couple of negative plays here and there, but for the most part, I thought it was a really strong day for the first-year starter on the right side. First clip here, we're going to get a run to the outside from the Colts offense, and I really love how these two interior players are playing for the Colts in the run game this year. This is just a perfect example of two offensive linemen just being in perfect sync with each other, because Matt Goncalves has to cross the face of this interior defensive lineman here, get in front and cut off that lane for him so he's not able to shoot upfield and disrupt this run lane for Jonathan Taylor. And it's really hard to do that from this standpoint here. You know, we got a zero tech defensive tackle here. For Goncalves to get in front of him here, he either needs a great jump off the line of scrimmage or he needs some help from his center. So we see this in this clip, and there's actually another clip later in the video where we're going to highlight this as well, where Bortolini does an excellent job at center of getting a first punch on the defensive tackle, slowing up that defensive tackle's point of attack, and then giving Goncalves that leeway he needs to cut that player off, get his body in front, and then finish the play. I know he falls over Alec Pierce, but still finish it with a good block and get that productive gain for the running back. So really good example of a guard and a center working well in concert to get that positive play for the Colts. Getting to this next one, we're getting a pass protection clip here. Since it's like a 5-man front for Atlanta, you're basically doing man blocking across the board once you get into this pass play. And Goncalves does a really good job with his quick set here. Gets his quick set, jumps up in his stance, gets on him, hands on him, feet wide, does a really good job of feeling this stunt coming as well. It's a really slow developing stunt, doesn't really allow the pick player right here, number 96, to cross his face with too much vertical disruption. So when they do pass off the stunt, it's a very easy 1-2 here for the interior players. They're able to sit on top of that and get that pass protection all cleaned up there on the interior. Getting to this next clip here with Goncalves and Bortolini. You know, this is probably the worst run rep from Goncalves in this game, although I don't think it's too bad. Essentially what we got going on here is Bortolini's going to pull out in front into this gap, and Taylor's just going to be on this RPO run here. And Goncalves' entire job here is to just wall off this defender, make sure this defender doesn't get too much vertical disruption, and make sure especially that he doesn't cross into this gap here, because we want Bortolini to be free to get to the linebacker at the second level and really free up this run. So what we see here from Goncalves is he probably protects that outside a little bit too much with the leverage of the defender. Like, you got to really recognize the leverage here where, look, just naturally from your point of view here, he has that leverage on the inside to cover that gap, so he can be a tad bit more aggressive. Like, still open your hips a little bit here, but you don't have to open it as much as he does on this play, which allows a bit too much vertical disruption here from the defensive tackle. So we see here, again, we don't really need to jump out here because we already have that natural leverage with how the defensive tackle is playing that technique. So this could have been a disaster for the Colts. He does get just enough on the defensive tackle to where a superstar running back like Jonathan Taylor is able to get around and just get up the field for that 30-yard gain on the play. But I think Goncalves has the right mindset here. He just doesn't need to take that first step wide, take that first step forward, because you have the natural leverage. Like, if this guy was playing more face up, if he was like right here, or I mean, if he was in this gap, then yes, you want to get that first step out here and seal him off. But because he's playing shading like that inside there, the first step doesn't need to be outside. The first step needs to be forward, or maybe even a little bit inside, just to wall off that defender from that that gap like you already have the natural leverage to do and just prevent that vertical disruption. There's a little bit too much vertical disruption here from Goncalves, and it almost leads to disaster. But luckily, Jonathan Taylor is just a superstar and turns this into a 30-yard gain for the Colts on the ground. So probably the biggest negative in the run game from Goncalves in this one. Still gets a hand on the defender, but we want to see that just a little bit cleaner on plays like that in the future. Another pass protection rep here from Goncalves. I think it was a really clean, really good rep here. A little slide slide set here. Does this thing that we talked about in a lot of these previous videos where we get that first punch. So watch the first punch again. We're going to get out here, angle set here. And then we're going to get that first punch from him. And then he's going to circle the hands back inside. So punch, circle, locked up. Now he runs into Jonathan Taylor, which kind of disrupts this a little bit. But again, I still like the punch, circle the hands in, just get your feet set for that bull rush and stay on top of it. Gives the time needed for Daniel Jones to deliver over the middle of the field. Really good pass blocking rep from Goncalves, especially on this play action play where you need to give that time for your quarterback. So really nice rep there. Another one here where you get kind of like a little bit of a jump set here. It's not the biggest jump set. Like, again, what we've always been talking about with jump sets with Goncalves is a little pitter-patter forward. He doesn't really pitter-patter too much here. It's like just like 2-ish steps here at best, like half a step at best. But he does hold his ground. He doesn't want to give up too much ground here. Punch inside, extend those hands. Really good hand placement here when you have that inside protected. Right hand inside, left hand outside, so you can protect against any kind of counter or any kind of move from there. And he stays on top of that rep, gives Daniel Jones the time needed, and Jones delivers to the outside. Just another really good pass blocking rep from Goncalves on that play, which is kind of the theme of this game. Next one here, jump set king. We talk about it all the time. You know, jump set king, we're jumping. This is really the time you want to jump set when you're not doing like, you know, an under center play action is like jump setting these one techs or the two techs that are face up. Stay right on top of that guy. Does a really good job of jump setting. I think this is David Onyemata too, like a good veteran defensive tackle. Jumps him, hands inside. They both kind of hit hands. You know, it's a little bit of a funny timing for both plays, but circles back inside. And then once he gets a guy in this position, like we talk about all the time, where it's like, look, the feet are square, hands inside. From here, it's really hard to beat a 6'6", 320-pound offensive guard in the NFL. And what we see here is, again, like even if he loses his hands, he can just rework those hands, get them on, run him out of the play, take him on his path, give Daniel Jones that lane to escape. Another good, solid pass rushing rep there from Matt Goncalves. Getting to another one, again, we're working off of potential stunt blitz here. He's working the two-man game with Braden Smith. Now, I don't really love this stunt here from the Atlanta Falcons because ideally, at least the world I live in with stunts, I like to have guys crossing faces of guards. So, like, this guy who's already kind of in this gap, all he's doing is just shooting this vertical disruption here, where Goncalves doesn't really have to like lose his heading at all, right? His eyes are still up right here. He's just going to have hands on here and make sure this guy doesn't get too far vertical, and then he's able to work off and get his hands on this guy. So I don't really love this stunt from the Falcons. I think Smith and Goncalves play it really well, where, again, this guy's trying to get that vertical disruption. Braden Smith does a good job of cutting him off. Goncalves keeps those eyes up, hands on the stunter, runs him out of the play. Daniel Jones is able to step into the throw, and, we're going to not talk about the result of the play, but really good two-man game there from Braden Smith and Matt Goncalves there on the outside. We have another run play here, and I will say the best thing ever as an interior offensive lineman, or just an offensive lineman in general, is when you don't have the exact leverage you want pre-snap. So Goncalves is supposed to drive this guy out of this gap here because we're going to be running it to that B gap here. So Goncalves needs to work this guy out of his gap. And the greatest feeling ever as an offensive lineman is when the defense is run stunting and they're run stunting the guy into the direction where you need to run him out of the play. This is probably the best feeling you can possibly get because the guy's doing all the work for you. So again, Goncalves is thinking pre-snap, like, okay, my first step has to be wide. I have to make sure I get in between this guy and the gap and drive him out of the play. And then the guy does the work for him by crossing his face, getting into that gap. Goncalves now has kind of already fixed the issue that was at hand. And there he can just run the guy on his line, run him out of the play, play. Nice little finish there from Goncalves at the end. Gets that pancake, gets that body blow that we're looking for from offensive linemen, and the Colts get a nice little like 3 or 4 yard run up the middle. Really nice rep from Goncalves. And I like just, again, that blocking the defender on his path, taking him out of the play that way. That's how you play offensive line. That's the Howard Mudd method that I know and love there with the Colts. Again, this is the two-man concept that I was alluding to earlier with, again, Bortolini and Goncalves. These two just operate at such a high level on these run plays, but look at how Bortolini, again, slows that vertical disruption here from this defensive tackle to give Goncalves the time to cross the face and get on there. So Bortolini with the right hand punches, slows that guy down, and then he climbs that second level. Goncalves is able to cross the face and get on that guy, and those two are able to lock down their two assignments at that second level. Just excellent work, excellent two-man game there from the center and the guard. That is exactly what you want to see on plays like this. Quentin Nelson with a really good block as well. This is why the Colts are able to be so effective on these outside runs when you have guys performing like this on the interior to lock up linebackers and any kind of vertical disruption that you could get from defensive tackles. Another pass block play here, and this is one I really wanted to talk about because this is one of this is like the most important play of the game, right? This is the 4th and 2 at the end of the fourth quarter. Colts are in empty here, so we only have 5 offensive linemen against potential of six guys coming on this play. So the quarterback knows he has to be hot on this play. Quarterback knows the ball has to be out quick. But even with that, I think the offensive line could have been better here, where they have a left slide call here, which ends up being unfortunate because they're dropping this guy out. So they're sliding to the left, and they end up having 3 guys blocking 2, and then 2 guys here blocking 3. And that's the worst place you want to be as an offensive line, right? You guessed wrong with your slide, and you have to protect from there. Now, the communication needs to be better between these 2 players, or I guess these 3 players in a sense as well, where if this guy's dropping, right, it's kind of tough for this guy to get back over here, because if this guy's selling that blitz, it's really tough to kind of get your body here. And what we end up seeing is actually, I think this guy does drop here. So it's only 2v2, but because this guy sells that blitz really hard, Goncalves has to commit to protecting that inside, because when you're in empty, the most important thing to protect in general is that inside rusher. So the communication, I think, between these 2 guys should have been, hey, if this guy shows he's coming, Braden Smith needs to get 55, and then Daniel Jones is responsible for 17. And what we kind of see here is when this guy commits, he doesn't actually rush on the play, but Goncalves has to respect that commitment to the rush, which means Braden Smith needs to pull off onto 55. Braden Smith kind of sets to the outermost guy instead. And as a result, it leads to just that free rush up the middle. It's a really great design blitz call here, actually, from the Falcons. I don't think they actually end up blitzing because they bail this guy and this guy. But because this guy sells it, he gets Goncalves to commit inside like he should be to protect that inside rush. Braden Smith needs to come down on 55, which would leave this guy hot for Daniel Jones. But Jones is already going to get this ball out hot because we're in empty protection. Empty protection, the ball needs to be out under 2 seconds here. So a really good design from the Falcons. I think, obviously you don't like seeing guys not blocking anybody, but, Braden Smith needs to get down on 55 here. Like, that cannot be, we can't be having that big a split there. I know it looks bad because neither guy is blocking anybody here, but Goncalves is committing to the guy that's showing the blitz on the inside when you're sliding to the left, and they're sliding to the left because their passing strength is to the left. You don't want to have a free rusher to the passing strength side where the quarterback is looking. So they're doing everything right. I just think Braden Smith needs to get there. Then Daniel Jones is hot for the outside defender. Ball's out. Regardless, the Colts get the ball out and they get that completion, but the process could have been a bit cleaner between right tackle and right guard on that play, especially with the right tackle. Got to block the innermost threat first and then work outside. But it all worked out for the Colts, obviously, by the end of this game. Next clip here, one-on-one, Matt Goncalves versus Jalen Walker. Very talented speed rusher, rookie pass rusher. This is the big-time threat that has been giving Goncalves the types of issues we've seen in recent weeks, and I think this is the best that Goncalves has performed against a speed rusher to the inside. So we see him get into his angle set. He's protecting that inside, which has been a big thing we saw against Zaven Collins, and we saw against some other speed rushers as well, where he struggled to protect that inside hip. I think he's doing a really good job here of leveraging that inside, so that way when Jalen Walker tries to work back inside, left hand is ready, it's up, it's powerful, it's able to hold that block at the point of attack, and then give Daniel Jones the time he needs to make that throw. I thought that was a really excellent block there from Matt Goncalves on an island versus a really good rookie. And then the final clip of this long video here, nice little quick set here from Goncalves, hands high, hands inside, wins the hand fighting game, gives Daniel Jones the time he needs to make the throw of the day, get the Colts their win just a few plays later. So yeah, overall, I thought it was a good day for Matt Goncalves. You could have been a little bit cleaner on the process on that empty protection call late. And there were a few run plays where, he could have been a bit better, but overall, I thought Goncalves was really solid in this one, did a really good job against a tough Falcons defense, and I was impressed with how he played. So yeah, the train keeps rolling for Matt Goncalves. I hope that over the bye week he can spend time with his family and really work through everything he's been going through these last couple weeks. Our thoughts are obviously with him and everything with his dad. So I hope that this bye week can give him some time to refresh and just kind of get back to what he's doing, and he can come out strong and just continue this play the rest of the year, because I've been just super impressed with this young player, and he keeps standing out each and every week for me on film.